Before we open the classified file on the Volkov incident, if you enjoy uncovering the dark secrets of the Cold War and the mysteries that were buried behind the Iron Curtain, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. It helps us bring these forgotten histories to light. The hallway of the apartment building on Leninsky Prospect smelled of damp wool, boiled cabbage, and the specific acrid scent of cheap tobacco that seemed to permeate every stairwell in Moscow in the winter of 1974. It was November, the kind of November where the sky turns the color of a bruised plum by 3 in the afternoon, and the wind off the Moskva River cuts through the heaviest coats. Inside apartment 4B, Elena Volkova was ironing. She was 34 years old. Though the lines around her eyes and the gray streaking her dark hair suggested a woman a decade older, the rhythm of her life was measured in the hiss of the iron, the ticking of the clock on the mantelpiece, and the silence that had filled these 3 rooms for 5 years. At 4:15 p.m., there was a knock at the door. It was not the aggressive, terrifying pounding that had woken her 5 years ago, the knock that signaled the end of her life as she knew it. This knock was hesitant, almost polite, a soft rapping of knuckles against wood. Elena set the iron upright. She wasn't expecting anyone. Her neighbor, Madame Tereshkova, usually shouted through the wall rather than knocking. The building manager had already collected the rent. She walked to the door, her slippers shuffling on the parquet floor that was in desperate need of wax. She hesitated at the threshold. "Who is it?" she asked, her voice tight. There was no answer, just the sound of heavy breathing on the other side and the shifting of weight. She unlocked the latch, her fingers trembling slightly, a reflex she had never quite lost since 1969, and opened the door 3 inches. A man stood in the dim light of the hallway. He was wearing a coat that was too thin for the weather, a rough gray wool that looked like surplus issue. He held a small canvas bag in his left hand. His face was gaunt, the cheekbones sharp enough to cut, and his hair, once thick and brown, was shaved close to the scalp and growing back in patchy, colorless tufts. But it was the eyes that stopped Elena's heart. They were blue, a pale, watery blue. "Elena," the man said. His voice was like dry leaves scraping together. Elena stepped back, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle a gasp. She looked at the scar above his left eyebrow, a faint white line from a bicycle accident when he was 12. It was there. She looked at the way his shoulders hunched slightly, a posture of perpetual defense. "Victor," she whispered. "I have come back," he said. Victor Volkov had been an architect for the city planning committee. In 1969, he had been arrested for anti-Soviet agitation, a catch-all charge that usually meant someone had told a joke the wrong person overheard, or had possessed a book they shouldn't have. He had been sentenced to 10 years in the corrective labor camps of the East. 5 years. He was only halfway through his sentence. "They released you?" Elena asked, still not opening the door fully. The fear was ingrained. If he had escaped, if he was a fugitive, letting him in would send her to the camps alongside him. "Early release," Victor said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a stamped document. "A review of the case. Amnesty for non-political offenders with good behavior." Elena took the paper. The stamps looked official. The signature was illegible, but the seal of the Ministry of Internal Affairs was crisp and red. She opened the door wide. Victor stepped inside. He did not rush to embrace her. He did not fall to his knees or cry. He stepped into the apartment as if entering a museum, looking at the coat rack, the mirror, the small table where the telephone sat. He stood in the center of the hallway, the canvas bag hanging heavy in his hand. Elena closed the door and locked it. She turned to look at her husband. He was thinner, yes. He was aged, but there was something else. He stood with a stillness that was unnatural. The Victor she remembered was a man of kinetic energy, always tapping his foot, always gesturing with his hands when he spoke about buildings and angles. This man was a statue. "Are you hungry?" Elena asked, the banality of the question feeling absurd in the face of the moment. "Yes," Victor said. "Thank you." He walked into the living room and sat on the edge of the sofa. He didn't lean back. He sat with his spine straight, his hands on his knees, staring at the blank wall opposite him. Elena went to the kitchen. Her hands were shaking so badly she dropped the box of matches twice before she could light the stove. She warmed up the soup from the night before, beetroot and potato. She cut thick slices of black bread. She made tea. When she brought the tray into the living room, Victor was exactly where she had left him. He hadn't taken off his coat. "Victor," she said gently, "take off your coat. It's warm in here." He looked at her, blinking slowly, as if processing a complex command. "Yes," he said. "The coat." He stood up and removed the gray wool coat. Underneath, he wore a mismatched suit that smelled of mothballs, clothes likely given to him by the release center. They ate in silence. Victor ate methodically. He did not rush. He did not savor. He moved the spoon from the bowl to his mouth with the precision of a machine. He wiped the bowl clean with the bread, leaving not a single drop of red broth. Where did they send you?" Elena asked finally. "You never said in the letters, you just said the north." Victor paused. He looked at the empty bowl. "A facility," he said, "near Vorkuta. But then they moved me to a special unit." "Special unit? For rehabilitation," Victor said. He looked up at her then, and for a second, Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the drafty window. His eyes were empty. Not sad, not traumatized, just devoid of anything recognizable. "They wanted to see if we could be made useful again." "Well, you are here," Elena said, reaching across the table to touch his hand. His skin was ice cold and rough like sandpaper. "You are home." Victor looked at her hand covering his. He didn't pull away, but he didn't turn his hand over to hold hers. He just observed the contact. "Yes," he said, "I am home." But as the evening wore on, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that the man sitting in her living room, the man who looked like her husband and spoke with her husband's voice, was a stranger wearing Victor's skin. The first week of Victor's return was defined by a suffocating quiet. The Soviet Union was a society of paperwork, and a returned prisoner required a mountain of it. Victor had to register with the local militia, apply for a residence permit to live in his own home again, and register for a work placement. Elena took 2 days off from her job at the textile factory to accompany him. She expected him to be nervous. In her experience, men who had brushed against the apparatus of the state remained terrified of it forever. They flinched at sirens. They sweated when police officers looked at them. Victor did not flinch. At the militia station, a doer sergeant named Klimov reviewed Victor's release papers. Klimov was a man who enjoyed the small power he held over the citizens of his district. He took a long time lighting a cigarette, blowing smoke in Victor's face. "Early release," Klimov grunted, looking at the file. "Says here you were a model prisoner. Cooperative, highly intelligent." "I did what I was told," Victor said. His voice was flat, lacking the deferential tone that usually helped in these situations. "We have a gap here," Klimov said, tapping the paper. "From 1971 to 1973. The location of your detention is listed as Zone 12B. "I don't know a Zone 12B. Where is that?" Elena looked at Victor. She wanted to know too. The letters had stopped coming during those years. For 2 years, she had thought he was dead. Victor stared at the sergeant. "It was a specialized facility, east of the Urals. We worked on logistics." "Logistics," Klimov repeated. "And what does an architect know about logistics?" "I learned," Victor said. Klimov stared at him for a long moment, looking for a crack, a sign of disrespect. Victor simply stared back, blinking at regular intervals. Eventually, Klimov stamped the paper. "Get out," the sergeant said. "If you so much as jaywalk, Volkov, I'll send you back so fast your head will spin." "Understood," Victor said. Walking back to the apartment, the city seemed to assault Victor's senses, or at least Elena thought it should. The traffic had increased since 1969. There were new buildings, new slogans on the billboards. "Does it look different to you?" Elena asked, linking her arm through his. Victor scanned the skyline. "The density has increased by approximately 15%, he said. "The traffic flow is inefficient at this intersection. The timing of the lights causes a bottleneck." Elena frowned. "I meant, does it feel good to see it?" "It is a city," Victor said, It functions. When they got home, the neighbors were waiting. In a communal culture, privacy was a myth. Madame Tereshkova was in the hallway, pretending to sweep. "So he returns," she boomed. She was a large woman with a heart of gold and a tongue like a whip. "Victor, you look like a skeleton. Elena, you must feed this man." Victor stopped. He looked at Madame Tereshkova. He tilted his head slightly to the left. "Hello," he said. Madame Tereshkova paused. She and Victor had argued about politics and football for 10 years before his arrest. She expected a quip, a joke about her cooking, something. "Hello?" she repeated. "That's it? No, how are you, old hag? No, did you finally poison your husband? I hope you are well," Victor said stiffly. Madame Tereshkova looked at Elena, her eyes wide. "The camps took his humor, Elena. That is a tragedy." "He is tired," Elena said quickly, pulling Victor into the apartment. Inside, Victor went to the bookshelf. He stood there for an hour, pulling out books, opening them, and putting them back. He didn't seem to be reading them. He was checking them. "Victor," Elena said from the doorway, "do you remember the day we bought that bookshelf? You carried it up 4 flights of stairs because the lift was broken." Victor didn't turn around. "The lift in this building breaks frequently. It is a maintenance issue." "Yes, but do you remember?" Victor slid a copy of Tolstoy back onto the shelf. "I remember that the shelf is heavy. I remember the lift was broken." It was the right answer, but it felt like a report, not a memory. That night, Elena lay awake in their bed. Victor lay beside her, on his back, his breathing shallow and perfectly rhythmic. He hadn't touched her. He hadn't reached for her. He had simply undressed, folded his clothes into a neat pile on the chair, something the old, messy Victor never did, and got into bed. "Victor?" she whispered into the darkness. "Yes, I missed you." There was a pause that stretched just a second too long. "I am here now," he said. Elena turned away, tears pricking her eyes. She told herself to be patient. He had been through hell. He had been in a special unit. God only knew what they had done to him. It would take time for the ice to melt. But as she drifted to sleep, a thought occurred to her, unbidden and terrifying. He didn't smell like Victor. Victor had always had a scent, a mix of drafting pencil shavings, old paper, and a specific musky sweat. This man next to her smelled of nothing. Absolutely nothing. Like he had been scrubbed clean from the inside out. By the 3rd week, the small differences began to pile up, creating a mountain of unease that Elena could no longer ignore. It started with the tea. Viktor Volkov had always taken his tea with 3 sugars and a slice of lemon, if they could get it. He had a sweet tooth that bordered on childish. One morning, Elena placed the cup in front of him, prepared exactly that way. Victor took a sip and immediately recoiled, setting the cup down with a clatter. "It is very sweet," he said, wiping his mouth. "It's how you like it," Elena said, pausing with the butter knife in her hand. 3 sugars. Victor looked at the cup with genuine confusion. "I do not consume sugar. It clouds the mind." Elena froze. "Since when? You used to steal sugar cubes from the cafe." Victor stared at the table surface. His eyes seemed to glaze over for a microsecond, a shutter clicking closed. In the facility, habits changed. Dietary restrictions were necessary. "Okay," Elena said slowly. "I will make you a new one." Then there was the piano. They had an old upright piano in the corner of the living room. It was out of tune, but Victor used to play. He wasn't a virtuoso, but he could play jazz standards he'd heard on bootleg records, and he could play Tchaikovsky. It had been his primary way of releasing stress. On a Sunday afternoon, while snow piled up on the windowsill, Elena asked him to play. "Play something, Vitya. It's been so quiet." Victor looked at the piano as if it were a spaceship control panel. He walked over to it and sat on the bench. He lifted the cover. He placed his hands on the keys. His fingers hovered. They didn't move. He pressed a single key. Middle C. Plink. He pressed another. Plink. I cannot," he said. "Your hands are stiff," Elena offered, trying to suppress the panic rising in her chest. "From the labor." "No," Victor said, looking at his hands as if they belonged to someone else. "The connection is not there. I know that this is a piano. I know that music comes from it. But I do not know. The algorithm. The algorithm, Elena asked. It's not math, Victor, it's music. I do not remember how, he said, closing the lid. He stood up abruptly. I will go for a walk. He left without a hat. Elena watched him from the window. He didn't walk like Victor either. Victor had a loping, casual stride. This man walked with efficient, measured steps, his arms swinging in perfect synchronization. He walked like a soldier on parade, or perhaps a robot testing its gyroscopes. While he was gone, Elena did something she felt guilty for. She went to his small canvas bag, the only thing he had brought back from the camps. She opened it. Inside there was a spare shirt, a toothbrush, a bar of soap, and a small notebook. She opened the notebook. She expected a diary, maybe drawings. Victor was an artist at heart. The notebook was filled with patterns, not words, not sketches of buildings, just rows and rows of geometric shapes, triangles, circles, squares, drawn with terrifying precision, and numbers. Strange sequences of numbers that didn't look like dates or phone numbers. 44, 90, 23, 12, 12 to 12, 88, 00. And in the middle of the book, a single phrase written in Russian, but in handwriting that was far too neat, far too controlled to be Victor's sprawling script. The vessel is intact. Integration proceeding. Elena dropped the book. Her heart hammered against her ribs. The vessel? Integration? She heard the key turn in the lock. She shoved the notebook back into the bag and kicked it under the chair just as Victor entered. He was flushed from the cold, his cheeks red. For a moment he looked healthy. He looked like himself. I walked to the river, he said. The ice is forming. That's nice, Elena squeaked. She cleared her throat. That's nice, Victor. He looked at her. He didn't smile, but his expression softened by a millimeter. Elena, I am trying. It is difficult to adjust. I know. She lied. She didn't think he was trying to adjust. She was beginning to think he was trying to learn. Like an actor learning a role he hadn't quite memorized yet. I have been assigned a job, he said, starting tomorrow, at the ZIL automotive plant, assembly line. That's heavy work, she said. For an architect. I am no longer an architect, Victor said. My license was revoked. I am a convicted felon. I am lucky to have work at all. Yes, Elena said. Lucky. She looked at the bag under the chair. She realized then that she was afraid of her husband. 2 streets away, in an unmarked black Volga sedan parked in an alleyway, 2 men sat in the freezing cold. One was young, eager, holding a thermos of coffee. His name was Lieutenant Petrov. The other was older, heavy-set, with eyes that had seen everything the KGB had to offer and found it all boring. This was Major Kogan. They were listening to the audio feed from apartment 4B. The bugs had been planted a week before Viktor Volkov's release. He's quiet, Petrov noted. Doesn't say much. Subject 77 is disciplined, Kogan grunted. That's what the report said. Subject 77? Petrov asked. His name is Volkov. Is it? Kogan lit a cigarette, cracking the window just enough to let the smoke escape but keep the cold out. Read the file again, Lieutenant. The full file, not the summary. Petrov picked up the dossier on the seat between them. He flipped past the arrest record, past the sentencing. He stopped at the section marked Classified, Level 5, Project Mnemonic. He was transferred to Facility 12, Petrov read, under the supervision of Dr. Yevgeny. Facility 12 isn't a prison, Kogan said. It's a laboratory. Petrov looked at the older man. What kind of laboratory? The kind that tries to solve the problem of human loyalty, Kogan said cryptically. Volkov was broken in the first year. He tried to hang himself. He refused to eat. He was effectively gone. A vegetable. So, how is he walking around and talking to his wife? Because Dr. Yevgeny doesn't believe in waste, Kogan said. They rebuilt him, or rather, they tried to see if they could overlay a new consciousness onto a damaged substrate. Petrov stared at the speaker, where the muffled sounds of Elena moving dishes could be heard. You mean brainwashing? More than that. Conditioning. Behavior modification. They wiped the trauma. They wiped the depression. But you can't just wipe. You have to fill the hole with something. What did they fill it with? Kogan exhaled a long plume of smoke. Orders, protocols, mathematics, loyalty. So he's a spy? No. Kogan shook his head. He's a test. We want to see if a man can be hollowed out and refilled, and then placed back in his natural environment without cracking. We want to see if the wife notices. We want to see if the old memories surface and corrupt the new programming. And if they do, then we terminate the experiment, Kogan said casually. And we try again with subject 78. On the radio, they heard Victor's voice. I am no longer an architect. He sounds convincing enough, Petrov said. Give it time, Kogan muttered. The human mind is a messy thing, Lieutenant. It resists. The old Volkov is in there somewhere, buried under 5 years of electric shocks and chemical therapy. He's screaming in the dark. Eventually he might wake up. Kogan checked his watch. Shift change. Keep the tape rolling. If he starts talking about numbers, or if he mentions the White Room, you call me immediately, day or night. Yes, Major. Kogan opened the car door. Pray he stays a robot, Petrov. Because if he remembers what they did to him, he's going to kill everyone in that building. The ZIL factory was a sprawling city of concrete and steel, a place of deafening noise and relentless motion. Victor was assigned to Sector 4, the assembly line for heavy truck gearboxes. It was brutal, mindless work. Pick up a gear, grease it, slot it onto the shaft, hammer the pin, repeat. 12 hours a day. The foreman, a thick-necked man named Boris, watched the new political with suspicion. He expected the architect to be soft. He expected him to complain about his hands, to slow down the line. But Victor did not slow down. Victor worked with a rhythm that was hypnotic. He didn't waste a single movement. His hands moved in a blur. By the third day, his section of the line was running 20% faster than the others. The men further down the line complained they couldn't keep up. Hey! Slow down, Professor! A worker yelled. Victor didn't look up. The optimal cadence requires consistency, he muttered to himself. On the Friday of his first week, the main conveyor belt jammed. The grinding screech of metal on metal brought the entire hall to a halt. Silence fell over the factory, heavy and sudden. Boris ran over, sweating. What is it? What happened? The maintenance engineer, a young man who looked like he hadn't slept in a week, was peering into the motor housing. Bearing seized. The drive shaft is misaligned. It's going to take 6 hours to strip it and recalibrate. 6 hours? Boris screamed. We have a quota! The plan must be fulfilled. Fix it in 1. I can't, the engineer yelled back. It's a complex mechanism. Victor stepped out of his place on the line. He walked past Boris, past the shouting men, and stood next to the motor. Don't touch it, convict, Boris barked. Victor ignored him. He looked at the machine. To the others, it was a mess of grease and steel. To Victor, it was a translucent schematic. He could see the stress points. He could calculate the torque. Give me a 14-millimeter wrench and a pry bar, Victor said calmly. Get back to your station, Boris shouted. The alignment is off by 3 degrees on the vertical axis, Victor said, his voice cutting through the foreman's bluster. The secondary clutch is engaging too early. You do not need to strip it. You need to bypass the governor and reset the tension. The maintenance engineer looked at him. That might burn out the motor. It will not, Victor said. The thermal tolerance of this unit is higher than the manual states. I know the alloy composition. How did he know the alloy composition? Viktor Volkov was an architect who designed libraries and bus stops. He knew concrete and glass. He did not know industrial metallurgy, but the engineer was desperate. He handed Victor the wrench. Victor moved. It was not the movement of a man guessing. It was surgery. He spun the wrench, jammed the pry bar into a specific gap, and heaved. There was a loud clunk. He reached inside the housing, twisting a valve with his bare hand, ignoring the searing heat of the metal. Start it, Victor said. The engineer hit the button. The motor hummed to life. The belt began to move smoothly. The workers cheered. Boris stared at Victor with his mouth open. Where did you learn that? Boris asked, stepping closer. That wasn't in your file. Victor looked at his burned hand. He didn't feel the pain. He just noted the tissue damage. I read a manual, Victor said. A manual? Boris scoffed. That was master mechanic work. Victor turned away. A headache was forming behind his eyes. A sharp, piercing static. He felt a flash of memory, not of a camp, but of a white room, and a voice reading technical specifications through a loudspeaker for hours, days, weeks. Recall initiated. Subject technical proficiency. Active. Victor stumbled. Are you all right? The engineer asked. I need water. Victor whispered. He walked to the water cooler, his heart racing. He didn't know how he knew how to fix the machine. He just looked at it, and the information was there, overlaying reality like a blueprint. He drank the water, staring at his reflection in the cooler's metal side. The face looking back seemed surprised. Who are you? He thought. I am Victor Volkov, the internal voice replied. I am a loyal citizen. I am home. But the voice sounded like a recording. 2 weeks after the incident at the factory, the phone rang in the apartment. Elena answered it. She listened for a moment, then covered the mouthpiece. It's Alexei, she said, looking at Victor. He heard you were back. He wants to meet. Alexei and Victor had been best friends since university. They had served in the army together for their mandatory service. They had shared secrets, vodka, and dreams. If anyone knew Victor, it was Alexei. I should meet him, Victor said. He wants to meet at Gorky Park, by the fountain, in an hour. Victor put on his coat. Gorky Park was frozen, the paths cleared of snow but slick with ice. Alexei was waiting on a bench, smoking a cigarette. He looked older, heavier, his face ruddy from the cold and too much drink. When he saw Victor, Alexei stood up and threw his arms wide. Vitya, my God, it's really you. He hugged Victor. Victor stood stiffly, then awkwardly patted Alexei's back. Hello, Alexei. Alexei pulled back, holding Victor by the shoulders. He looked him up and down. You look terrible, my friend, like a ghost. But you're alive. We thought, well, we stopped hoping. I am alive, Victor said. Come, let's walk. It's too cold to stand. They walked along the embankment. Alexei talked rapidly, filling the silence. He talked about their old friends, about his new job, about his children. Sasha is 10 now, Alexei said. Can you believe it? And little Tanya is starting school. Time passes, Victor observed. Alexei stopped. He looked at Victor sideways. You remember Tanya, don't you? You were her godfather. Victor paused. The database in his mind spun. Query, Tanya. Result, null. Of course, Victor said. She must be big. Vitya, Alexei said, his voice dropping. Do you remember the time in Omsk during service, when we stole the colonel's jeep? Victor stared at the gray water of the river. Query, Omsk, colonel, jeep. He found nothing, just a vast white fog. That was foolish, Victor said neutrally. We were young. We drove it into a ditch. Alexei laughed, watching Victor's face closely. And you broke your arm. Which arm was it? Victor hesitated. He looked at his arms. There were no breaks recorded in his current physical diagnostic. The left, Victor guessed. Most people were right-handed. Injuries often occurred on the non-dominant side during accidents. Alexei stopped laughing. The smile slid off his face like snow off a roof. It was your leg, Vitya, Alexei whispered. You broke your leg. We had to carry you for 3 miles back to base. The silence between them was louder than the wind. My memory is fragmented, Victor said. The trauma of the camps. Alexei took a step back. Trauma? You forgot breaking your leg? You forgot Tanya? You stood there when the priest baptized her. You held the candle. I am recovering, Victor said, moving toward Alexei. Alexei flinched. Stay back. Alexei, please. Who are you? Alexei asked, his voice trembling. You look like him, but you don't look at me like him. Victor had a twitch in his eye when he lied. You are staring at me like a dead fish. I am Victor Volkov. No. Alexei shook his head. I don't know who you are, but you are not the man I drank with. You are not the man who saved me from that fight in Kiev. Alexei turned and walked away, walking fast, almost running. Victor watched him go. He felt a sensation in his chest. Not sadness, but a warning. Security breach. Cover compromised. Witness unreliable. Victor's hand twitched. For a split second, he calculated the trajectory required to intercept Alexei, the precise strike to the carotid artery that would silence him. The calculation was automatic, instant, and perfect. Victor gasped and grabbed his own hand, forcing it down. What am I? He turned and walked in the opposite direction toward the metro, but he knew, with a cold certainty, that the clock was ticking. Alexei would talk. Elena was suspicious. The cracks in the mask were widening, and whatever was underneath was starting to claw its way out.